everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Rochelle from Rochelle.Handmade.Designs, and in this video we are doing a pattern review for the second dress that I created for my Valentine's Day. Well, I did a lunch over the weekend, and what I'm doing next weekend, or this weekend coming up, I will have my dinner date with my husband, of course, and my children, because we don't really go out on Valentine's Day because it's just too crowded. My kids would just completely have a meltdown going out on Thanksgiving. Not Thanksgiving, but Valentine's Day. I don't know where Thanksgiving came from, but we're at Valentine's Day. Well, you can kind of tell which holiday is my favorite, right? Thanksgiving and Christmas, because that's the best time to eat, okay? But that's not what this video is about. This is my Valentine's Day dress, the second one. This is the one that I have on, utilizing McCall's 8237. Now, before we get started, go ahead and hit the like button and the subscribe button, and also turn on the notification bell so you are notified every time I upload a new video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right on into this pattern review. All right, so the pattern description is a button-down shirt dress. It has a V-neck, it has drop shoulders and ruching at the waist. There's different view options, which includes a sleeveless version, which is view B. You also have the long sleeves, which is view A, which is more of a tunic. And then the view that I created was the long sleeve, which is actually view B. So it's view C, I believe, on the pattern that has the sleeveless version. Now, view B, the one that I did, and the view A, I think all the views actually has the shirt tail hem as well. Also, the sewing pattern either have the tunic, which is the shorter shirt, and then you also have the knee dress length, which is what I created. So let's go ahead and talk about the sewing skills. So for the sewing skills, the pattern is actually set to easy on the McCall's website. However, do I feel this pattern is easy? Yes and no. So I do feel that it's an easy pattern to sew with only 7 pattern pieces. However, if you are not great with sewing to a dot and then pivoting at the dot without going past the dot, the front bands can be difficult to do, which I'll talk about modifications and likes here in a minute. But I think it's easy, but I would say that the actual skill level can be an intermediate beginner. Now, I know there were many questions about what I feel to be beginner friendly, beginner sewist, intermediate, and advanced sewist, what have you, right? So any beginner can do all of the patterns that I have recommended or I have sewn or whatever. Any beginner. But how I break it down into beginner friendly, intermediate, and advanced is this. So if it's a beginner friendly pattern, that means it doesn't have any closures, pretty much any notions outside of thread, okay? So that's what I feel are beginner patterns that you can do. You are brand new to sewing. You only been sewing for 6 months to a year. You really still trying to get your foot wet into the sewing, your sewing journey or your sewing career, or, you know, what have you when it comes to sewing. What I mean by intermediate sewing, meaning that you have been sewing for 1 to 3 years. You know how to put a zipper in, you know how to do buttons, you know how to do interfacing, you know all of these different techniques that you need to know. The only thing that you're not familiar with would be your self-drafting, how to add to, you know, bust, waist, or hips area to enlarge the pattern. You do not know how to look at the pattern. Well, I'm saying intermediate, you know how to look at the pattern and make slight adjustment to take a basic pattern that's like, to a, you know, pattern where it's like, oh, I didn't even see this on the pattern. You know how to add different details to your liking. So like, for instance, this dress, you can make a tie belt, you know, coming from the side seams if you would like, and you could just self-draft that. So that's what I mean by intermediate. Advanced meaning that you could take this pattern, completely crop it, make it a different pattern, you know, so that would be more of the advanced patterns. Or if you had to do a jacket and required some build out, that's what I mean by advanced beginner. Like when I did the tailored blazer, that could be that the pattern is like an intermediate beginner. However, because I did build out, it would be more of like intermediate to advanced sewist. So that's what I mean when I say the different skill levels, where many sewists may have a different style of what they consider beginner friendly, beginner, intermediate beginner, advanced beginner, or your intermediate or advanced sewist. So that's what I mean by that. So now that I talked about the sewing skills, let's go ahead and talk about the fabric used for this pattern. All right, so the fabric used for this shirt dress, basically is what it is actually, it was from my stash. I purchased this pink broadcloth fabric from Joann's back in 2019, 2020. I did this color pink for my daughter when we were doing the Disney collection for a vacation back in 2020, but it was canceled due to COVID. The vacation was in April, but it was canceled, and we were notified like way back in like the beginning of, I want to say second week of March or something like that. Right when COVID hit, they decided that we weren't going to be going to Disney. This is before I moved here to Orlando. So I just kept the fabric in my stash, and my husband was like, hey, create a pink dress. And I was just like, oh, I don't wear pink like that. So that was something that I talked about in my last pattern review, but this was already in my stash. I didn't have to go out and buy anything. But yeah, my daughter loves pink and purple, so I just went ahead and used the rest of the fabric that's in my stash. I don't have any more of this pink left in my stash, but you could definitely find it at Joann's, and I will go ahead and put the link up on the screen as well as in the description box below. But that's the fabrics used for this shirt dress. Now that I talked about the fabric used, let's go ahead and talk about the pattern pieces used in order to create this dress. All right, so the pattern pieces used in order to create this dress, of course, you're going to need a total of 7, which is all the patterns on the pattern envelope. So you will need the front, the back, the front band, the back neck band, the sleeve front, the sleeve back, and then you need pattern piece number 7, your cuffs. So you basically need all the pattern pieces on the pattern pieces in the envelope in order to create this dress. All right, let's talk about notions used. So the notions used is, of course, your coordinating thread, of course, your interfacing, and then you need a total, I believe, of 13 buttons in order to create view B, which is the view that I did. However, I used 14. And what I did was I used 1/2-inch buttons here on the cuffs, and it was 2 here and 2 here, which makes 4. And then I went ahead and used 5/8 of an inch buttons down the front of the shirt dress. And I basically did alternate colors. And then when I got to the middle of the buttonhole, I used a light pink. So I did a light pink for the center button. And then I did a medium and a dark pink in order to create this dress. And I think it looked amazing, but outside of that, so I used a total of 14 buttons, but I believe for view B, it calls for a total of 13 buttons. Reason being is because this button at the very top, it needed to be there for my bust. Otherwise, it would have just been dragging, and I didn't want that. So I just went ahead and created an extra buttonhole and made it do what it do, basically. Now that I talked about the notions used for this pattern, let's go ahead and talk about the pattern sizing. So the pattern sizing for this pattern, I believe the pattern comes in 6 to 14 and then 16 to 24. The pattern, the size that I cut for this pattern was a size 18 at the bust and the waist, and then I graded to a 20 at the hips. Reason being is because I believe, if I remember correctly, from the finished garment measurement on the pattern, in the pattern itself, I believe the bust finished garment measurement for an 18 was like a 44, which was great for me because I was going to wear a bra that I would need for 44. The waist, I believe, was like a 35.5, so it is a little loose in the waist, but that was fine because the ruching at the waist made it look amazing. And then the hips, I definitely, because my hips is a 44, I didn't want it to be tight if I sit down or anything. So I went for the 20, which gave me like a 47.5, and it was perfect. It wasn't tight or anything. And I didn't have to squeeze and make sure I watch where I sit or anything because, you know, listen, ladies, when you have a badonkadonk, you already know you need some room. Don't try to make it tight when it's not knit. When it's not stretchable, make sure you have some room, okay? That's my tip for you. All right, so now that we talked about the pattern sizing and the size that I cut, let's go ahead and talk about the modifications that I made. All right, so modifications. To be honest with you, I really did not make any modifications outside of that button at the very top. And just alternating the buttons. That's basically all I did for this pattern. I didn't do nothing else to this pattern. All right, so did it look like the photos or drawing on the envelope? Actually, yes. It looks exactly like the model on the envelope, but you have to remember, like my girl Creativity by T, Talisha from Creativity by T, she said it in her last video. If you are a heavier girl and you're just not like Coke bottle skinny or whatever, it looks like the pattern envelope, but because I'm a bigger, I won't say like bigger, but I'm a thicker, which is a great word to use. I'm a thicker woman. It looks exactly like the pattern envelope, but because I am a thicker woman than the model, of course, you know, it may seem like it doesn't look like it, but yes, in my opinion, yes, it looks like the pattern envelope. Are the instructions easy to follow? So the instructions are easy to follow. There's one instruction that can be tricky. And I believe, I don't remember what step it is because I don't have the instructions right in front of me, but it was when you get to the front band. And the reason why I say that is because what you need to do is attach the band without the interface seam to your shirt dress first. And then attach the interface, which is called the facing, right? To the one that's not interface. So normally you would do it the opposite way where you would attach the interface front band to your dress and then put on the one that's not interface. But in this pattern, you need to attach the one that's not interface first to your dress and then attach the one that's interface for basically the facing piece, okay? But other than that, there was no modifications whatsoever. The instructions are easy to follow. Let's go ahead and talk about my likes and dislikes for this pattern. I love the dress. I love the pattern. There are more likes than dislikes. So the first thing, let's talk about the likes. I love the sleeves and the cuffs. I love how it's a dropped shoulder because I love drop shoulders. I love the style of the ruching at the waist and the buttons. Now, that's everything that I love. I love the darts as well in the back. I love all of that. What I dislike mostly about this dress, and I didn't think about it when my kids and I picked the pattern, you know. So I went with them because they wanted me to do this dress. They picked the pattern and I like to make my kids happy. So I didn't think of the shirt tail hem, okay? So I did not like that part because it was difficult to make sure that you're 5/8 of an inch hem allowance and it's, you know, I'm pressing all day. That's what it seemed like, to make sure that you have no seams hanging out. So it was difficult for that. So I guess I'm not a person who likes that rounded hemline or the shirt tail hem. So, I mean, it works out, but it's just, I guess, I wouldn't say it's not my style. It is my style. However, it's just difficult. I won't say it's difficult. It's just takes forever to do a shirt tail hem, or a round hem is what it's called. But other than that, That was the only dislike that I had for the pattern. Would I sew it again? Yes, I would sew this again, but I think if I sew it again, I need a darker fabric because, honey, this pink is see-through, and I went through every single color that I had in, you know, top and bottom. What I mean by that is bra and panties, right? In order to figure out what's not going to be seen and have a see-through through this fabric. Okay, I didn't want those issues whatsoever. All right. Now, would I recommend this to others? Absolutely. So this pattern is a good one that you may want in your wardrobe if you all about shirt dresses, something slouchy, because you can wear this 2 or 3 different ways. So one way, I only wore it one way because I knew I was going to do a lunch date. So you can wear it button up with heels like I did, or you could wear like a dress down look with tennis shoes, or you could wear it open with jeans and just have like a white shirt on or whatever. So, and just be out like a meet and greet friends or whatever. So you can wear this so many different ways. You don't have to wear it like I wear it. You can wear it and style it whichever way you want. Now that I said that I would recommend this to others, my pattern rating. So my pattern rating for this pattern is a 4 out of 5, only because of that shirt tail. And one thing I do want to mention is because this fabric is so plain, it's solid, there's no, so I had to make it my own. I did add some top stitching. So I add some top stitching along the shoulders, along the sleeves right here. And then I did add some top stitching on the side as well, just to give it some more details. And you can do that as well. You can do that to any pattern you want. But that's it. That's all for this pattern review. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you are notified every time I upload a new video. So I'll catch you in the next video. And as always, keep sewing.